I'm Jeff Guillot. I am the president of Inveniam Labs, which is a product innovation center and a blockchain technology center of excellence in Austin, but part of Invenium Io, which is we seek to bring data to private market assets that you can trust and that you can make good decisions on, and good investment decisions, and really driving to that same theme that everybody's been talking about here, is getting private assets onto chain in a way that you can raise capital, interact with your investors, access new pools of capital. And we believe that the way you do that is by providing data that's immutable, trustable, that informs the performance of the asset, the current value of the asset, to facilitate that trading. And so we use blockchain to commute the trust in data by basically we connect to the assets data sources. Assets on our platform are onboarded to connect and leave the data in your systems. If you're a real estate owner, we connect to your data systems, your accounting systems as necessary to essentially create a virtual data room that provides an evergreen state of that asset that informs the performance of that asset. So you can imagine we're reading financial statements, we're reading rent rolls, we're reading forecasts and budgets, we're reading community information, data feeds about the area, and we're actually and I'm talking maybe specifically about commercial real estate, multifamily homes right now, because that's been a very active adopter of what we're doing. So basically working with third-party credentialed partners. So we work with JLL, we work with CBRE, we work with ValueStrat on a global basis. They're our partners, they're partner with our clients, essentially to set up the data feeds, the information, so they can provide that current value mark on your asset and keep it update that on a regular basis. You've got if you're an asset owner or investor, a current view of performance and the value of that asset on an ongoing basis. If you're a potential investor, you've got data that you can rely on that you would hope to see in a public, company or a public asset, which you can't get in these private assets. By working with the operator, owners, asset managers, the investment community itself that wants to make investments in these assets, we're able to connect to the data streams, make it very efficient to provide the information. And we leave the information with the owners so they control it, so they decide who can see it, who can't. Whether it's prospective investors or current investors, they control that, they own that data. And as we lean forward into the tokenized world and the blockchain world, there's a rich history that's very auditable, very understandable, and provides that opportunity to understand exactly the performance and how to trade and make good decisions on those assets and on those investments. Does that make sense at all in the moment? So that's really what matters. Everything else is technology. And some people care and some people don't care about technology, but getting that value out, that visibility is what's important. What I've got today to share is a couple of slides to sort of explain how we do what I just described at a very high level, and then we'll hop into the system and do a demo, which is one of those things that you hate to do in a trade show, but I think we're good. So the Invenium Io platform is essentially a data operating system for distributed assets for the distributed data economy. And so, like I mentioned, we don't create one big database to rule them all. We connect to the data at its source, and we can push that into many different types of cases, many different types of downstream systems. So we make, in private markets, that data tends to be in dumb documents, PDFs, and various other places, but we're able to use workflows, automation, AI technologies to help make dumb documents higher functioning. But the most important thing is we're making sure that we can define the history of that document, provide an audit trail, and credential those documents so that the actors looking at that data, whether you're an investor or an appraiser, you're looking at data where you can get that blockchain proof that you're looking at the correct document from the correct author, and that the data that came from that document matches the source data and matches the inputs to whatever system read that data and helped make a decision off of that data. So it's a thin overlay that facilitates that. And how do we do it? Essentially, we credential that data at its source, and the way we think about that is we create a proof of state, right? And we're taking documents like the internal financial reports, basic performance information. We're encrypting that document, we're capturing the hash value of that document, and that's what we're loading in the payload of a block. And creating that history where we understand who created that document, when and where it was created, what type of document that is, and that captures and allows us to create a set of documents that will prove the state of the asset and the current evergreen copy of data and information. And we make that higher functioning by adding essentially what we call data artifacts, where we use artificial intelligence to take data out of that document, structured data that can be made interoperable. We credential to blockchain that act, who pulled the data out, what data was pulled, exactly where it came from in the source document, and I'll show you how that looks in a minute. And we credential that progeny of data. And so we use applications that act on that basis. Today, in tokenizing assets, we're able to take that data and create a proof of value, where we bring in third-party credentialed appraisers like from JLL or CBRE or Cushman. From the accounting firms like Deloitte or Houlihan Lokey, we're grabbing performance information like audited financials. We're credentialing that data, those documents on chain. We're pulling data elements out of those documents. We're associating that with multiple types of documents like comps in the market, if it's real estate or private equity comps, a rich set of information that we package up. We feed that into a valuation engine. So we feed it into Argus, if you're familiar with that platform. We feed it into ValueD, if it's a private equity platform, or Rockport Val, and basically it doesn't matter. We're creating a very open, interoperable interface for that data so it can be consumed. And in this particular case, I keep hitting the wrong side of my mouse pad, we use that to create a price. And that price then allows the participants in a collaborative workflow to get visibility to that price, and essentially provide a full observability and traceability back from that price to the data the data elements that were used to input that price and the source documents they came from. And so, and that ends up at the very end point in a report, which I'll show you a few of the owners of the real estate asset or an investor might receive, put it up on a trading site in a smart contract. So we do that at the asset level, and we found a lot of traction. There was a public announcement, I guess last week, of an investment in our Series A by a company called Apex Fund Services, which is one of the largest alternative asset management fund service administration companies in the world, and really starting to use this to provide better performance visibility to their alternative asset portfolios, a lot of which are real estate. And so one of the things that we've been working through with that is we can actually roll all of this up and start to value a fund and a full portfolio of assets and inform the portfolio of that fund. And then the level of documents and data that we've been capturing actually facilitates the capital stack hard work of waterfall calculations and investor calculations, where we're seeing when those capital calls need to occur, when distributions need to occur, how they're calculated at the asset level and all the way up through the fund level, and all the complexities of multiple funds and funds of funds up there. So that sort of allows us to really start to manage portfolios of digitized assets, as well as tokenizing individual assets. So in that case, we're grabbing capital event notices, credentialing those documents in the same way, wrapping that all up into a capital event, so we're associating all the current state of all the underlying assets, and then we drive a workflow into an engine like Cascade or InvestTrans or whatever accounting system or GL or calculation system you use. And in the same way, we credential that entire capital event, and it doesn't matter. That we credential that entire capital event, and drive out the, it'd provide full observability, and I'll show you this in a second too, to the investor calculation, the rules that went into that calculation, and the actual output to each individual investor of the source of their dividend or distribution or capital call amount. So why don't we jump into the system here. So what we do for assets, and we do this for assets, we do this for deals, if you can think about a Series A or a Series C round, and we do it for funds. In each case, the asset has a data room, which is a virtual data room. Again, it's just a logical representation of a bunch of pointers into the data in the system. And that data room supports workflows and collaboration that are working on the fund or working on evaluation. Our system, the Chicago apartment building, and it's being valued on a monthly basis. This is a demo copy of it, so it's a reduced copy. We've not loaded all of the documents in there, but there's we're probably a couple of dozen documents out of a couple of hundred documents that we collect around an asset like this, but to illustrate it. And so what we're doing is we're creating a profile of the asset. We're creating a workflow that essentially allows the appraisers, the property owners, the property managers, the investors to participate in a workflow that allows us to identify the data sources, get them connected to the system, drive automation to serve that data up to the appraiser. So things like financial documents, prior appraisals, rent rolls, physical documents, every document that comes into our system, and it's a struggle to talk about. We talk about uploading, but you're not really uploading. You're really just adding the document to the system. Think about it like Apple Music, perhaps, where you go and you say, I want this song in my library. It's not necessarily moving that data around. It's just creating the hooks into the application to play the data. So things like a survey information where all of this gets marshaled, sent to the appraiser through the workflow. They don't have to go look for it. When we read a document, we hash that document and we create a checksum, which is a unique fingerprint of that document. That goes into blockchain, so there's the tie to blockchain, so that you can always go back and prove that when I open up this survey and I'm looking at this survey for this property, this is the most current property. When I open it up in their data set, we run this hashing algorithm, we compare it to this checksum. It served it up to me because it was the correct copy of the document. Right, so and you can interoperate with this and share this wherever you need to go, but essentially we're driving a workflow that collects a variety of data. We use AI tools to extract that data, from the various inputs, from rent rolls, from financials. Just an example of what this might look like is this is a data artifact that we feed to Cushman, where they wanted to see sort of the key summary points associated with the budget for the coming year, the trailing 12 months, so they could create their own cash flow analysis on the document. And then that goes into a JSON file or an Excel spreadsheet, pushes that over into Argus. They import that in and run their reports. And so we can provide that kind of extraction across a wide variety of documents and turn it into structured data and move that through the system and downstream, or present that out into a broader space. So I think in the interest of time, what I want to do is a couple of things. I want to show you some of the endpoints here. So these are all generated by our system, by our AI tool, and the data that we get provided. So in this particular case, we're looking at the summary document of evaluation for one of the properties. And this sales comps, site information, et cetera. This becomes something that can be listed out on a trading site, for example. that source document in the Invenium Io system, again, checking that document to make sure that we've got the correct copy, comparing that checksum, and then being able to go in and look at the actual appraisal. And so that's available to any that has this asset associated with it as one mechanism, as well as login credentials and user ID authentication. But we're creating a set of data. So it's owner permission. The asset decides exactly who can see what kind of data. Right? So if you're listing and you're trading, you're going to obviously want to provide data that provides interest in the property, but not everything in the data room. Right? Right. Exactly. You know, and in that workflow, right, the appraiser, accountant, or the lawyer is all.
So the third party access our core documents.
Yes.
We upload all the stuff that they will need in order to do their work.
Correct. And you can, at a granular level, decide who gets. You can say Frank can see these documents, Cliff can see those documents, right? And you can control that at your level. So I wanted to just pull this one up because I pulled up the wrong, or one of the appraisals that didn't have as much fun information in it. No.
And I love the summary. Now, the accuracy of it, I'm sure you've tested the heck out of this.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, what I would say to you though is we credential the documents that you give us and the data that you give us. So we're not verifying data.
What you're having from that.
Have, full visibility of where it came from. So this is maybe a little hard to see here. This is where we've taken a number of assets and we've rolled them up into a fund portfolio, right? So you can imagine this is a set of multifamily assets. They've got a common set of features that can roll up, where at the fund level you're looking at the summary information of things like cap rates and valuation per unit, net operating income. So there's a good set, gross asset value, as well as some of the initial investments and capitalization. So you can get a snapshot ongoing at not only the asset level and where, or the whole portfolio. To drill into the document itself, the valuation, where this is fully activated now. So we can go and look at the valuations, see what that number of the appraiser, right? And we can look at things like the sales comps. Oops, we can go in and look at the sales comps and see exactly what properties in that sales comp they are. Look at the details of that. They are to map. Very quickly decide, is that comp the right comp, right? So that's always an important discussion between the appraiser. Is are you using the right comps? Do you have the right data? Are you using the right rent? To recognize that I've got a new, and in 3 months, and that rent goes up. So it's us to help you see as an owner what data is getting used to value, have that discussion with the appraiser, help get true, and that allows us to observe appraisal that can actually bring the fair treatment, the accounting treatment of a illiquid, infrequently traded asset like real estate, level 3 to a level 2, where there's in-market comps, an observable valuation process, and a sophisticated model will actually allow you guys keep your investor confident that what you're doing is Thank you. I'm glad I would have enjoyed just you and me when we started, but a few more people. various types of operators use this technology to really participate in a distributed data environment, manage on their in this section. Agnostic, promiscuous. So we allow our clients to attach to any blockchain they like and have their data ready for. Then just by normal course of behavior, we write to every blockchain we can. We try to make sure that in this crazy world, there's resilience. If one chain goes away or gets compromised, we don't lose anything. It's still out there, and it's there's an owner-operator package, and Sam Grossman in the back there, raise your hand, please. Everybody knows Sam, and he's in charge of that segment of the marketplace. Yeah, owner-operator, and that's a subscription model. Sam will squeeze you depending on how many doors you have, and you don't have to worry about that part. And basically, it's a monthly subscription, software as a service style model, if you think of it that way, that is predictable and sort of sized to the portfolio that you're managing.
Okay, but as we grow, because obviously we're just starting this.
Right. Once you hit a certain level, then you've got to deal with Cliff. No, for the funds, right? So we're working with several large name brand funds that are managing large portfolios of real estate assets. The model there tends to be basis points.
I was going to ask how many bits is this. So thank you. All right. So do you want to give me a range or no?
You want to give them a range?
Frank, you want to give him a range? Yeah, that one's been. I haven't been having that conversation as much as Sam has, so I'd be making things up if I tried to answer you right now.
Would you talk a little bit about how this compresses due diligence time and leads to faster transactions when the transactions are going to happen?
Yeah.
As things get tokenized and as the secondary exchanges, this data source is going to help the investor base that's coming in. It'll help the asset owners as they're looking to move their assets.
Yeah, what he said, exactly. Yeah, but it does. It gives you an evergreen data room at all times. So anytime an investor, and especially in that secondary trading market, it gives you the kind of data you would expect to understand about the assets that you're investing in. The ability to drill into often. So what we do is we connect to the owner's data system on the level of sophistication, right, and resource, but it's basically it's an and some where we're looking at files coming into the system, deciding what they are, running extractions on those files. It's dynamic enough, exactly, and it gets more and more automated over time. And part of that is our AI models are always learning, and as you can imagine in the private market world, the diversity of documents and document forms and language is tremendous, right? And so we put together a system that really allows us to constantly learn. So we bring new documents in the system, and the act of pulling the correct data from those teaches our AI, and it gets more and more automated as each client comes on board. Other questions?
I wish this was some kind of years.
Well, it's available now, so let's go. Yeah, and really a lot of mainstream, usable. Getting it right, has been a challenge. Moses, right? So. John?
On the custodial side, I assume ATAC, that means the custodian or access data. I don't want
Amazingly archaic in a lot of cases. You know, there's a lot of technology, you know, but it's really room. Especially in the private. Operate with their ecosystem, keep their data fresh. Creating interest in the institutional side, or LP.
you tokenize a property and you have 100,000 tokens. Is the ownership of those public knowledge?
No, it's not public knowledge. It depends on the anonymity you use in the wallets and the transactions that you execute, and that's a little bit up to some of the guys in the running these ATSs that are going to facilitate those trades. They do have KYC AML requirements to do it legally, right? So we want to do it all on the as regulatorily compliant as they can define right now. So there's maybe some loss of anonymity in that case. I'm not sure. I don't know, John. You might have an opinion on that. Yeah.
Some people are like that. That's why they give away stuff. So they get their name on the wall.
We're in the place today in this technology. You can do anything you want to, really. is the truth. And in your case, you'd be able, the token holders would be able to prove that they really did that. That would be the benefit of blockchain in that case, right? So you can kind of go either way, but blockchain is essentially going to give you proof of the information that you're trying to verify or ensure that is correct. I don't know how much time I have left, but I thought I'd relate. An output. So this is a distribution to an investor. And in this particular case, it happens to be a fund, and a real estate fund for, remind you as an investor what you did and why you're getting this notice. And so you may, in the color coding here is basically we have all of the connections from the source document up through the fund structures and all the way out to the investor statement. So we can instrument these statements in any way you want to show things, but reminds me, okay, this is the LP, that fund. We've extracted the fund, the elements of it, like Capcom, where you document. So we instrument for the waterfall, waterfall for the and then that's connected out to the distribution node itself. So in this particular case, a distribution that came from at the fund level, generated, say, see that 10.2 million their signatures on here. And then we can actually go back up. Up into the worksheet from the waterfall model itself, which again shows all the input values, and I could pop back to the LPA here. I can see as an investor how my returns were calculated, that I got a return of capital as well as a preferred return. I can see that number itself matches what's actually on my distribution notice, right? And I can see what property it was. If I want to look at the additional detail here, it's linked with, you can do whatever you want to make it interesting and informative and engaging. The opportunity to see the opportunity to ask the owner, hey, can I look at this? If it's something that you say, yes, you can see this, or not today. So it gives that opportunity. It gives the opportunity for you guys doing exchanges and trading sites or initial issuances. Provide this rich data set. Just tell your investments to put their assets on Inveniam, and we'll do the rest. Yes.
Exactly. Is it more just information or taking the appraised value?
They're validating. So they're
Replacement value in a particular market. Here's your trailing 12. Do they update it
every quarter, every month,
every month?
whatever you want, right? We're trying to get everybody to every month. Some people, it's a big leap to go from once every 5 years to once a year to once a quarter. But what Cushman is using this to get the data and to drive their process, and that allows them to do, we're trying to push some price compression in this process so that your, one-time appraisal cost is actually coming in less than your 12 times a year appraisal cost, right? So that I can scale. They get recurring revenue out of that. They get efficiencies. You get value. So we're trying to make sure that we're delivering value to all sides of the ecosystem to make this work efficiently and get the adoption.
Yeah, those are USPAP compliant appraisals that produce it, correct?
Correct. That's
So
right.
if it was an enterprise, it would be a USPAP compliant business valuation.
That's right. That's right. So we
Available as well.
so we do it for private equity.
Continue to value.
Yeah.
And then also on a quarterly basis, they can be for compliant as well.
So do each of those vendors have like an onboarding process with you guys? With they get a new asset on and they kind of set up?
Yeah.
Show it.
Yeah, so there's an onboarding process where the owner, the appraiser, and our team sits down and goes through a discussion of exactly what class this is and what are the documents that are needed, where they are, right? So we can connect all those dots and start feeding that flow of documents.
Those really develop that information from their lenders or whatever.
Right.
It's just giving them access.
We just connect to that and have a virtual connection to that. So we don't need the most we do is we'll run our AI on the documents to pull the data elements out. We actually leave that data in your control, but then we'll pass that data on to other collaborators who agree to share that with.
Have you guys explored anything with JLL or Cushman relative to perspective? Meaning, here's our trailing 12, here's this date.
Did you say a comment? So I mean, it is a dialogue of opportunity, right? And there's opportunity to appropriately influence the appraiser to provide them that information, show them the documents, right? So the appraiser gets the opportunity. You've presented a forecast or a rent roll or contracts that are coming up, and you've credentialed that document so they can use that input.
Both of those companies that, the appraisers, the capital markets, the brokers are different. They are the same. So this really does, it helps both those arms.
Yeah.
So you're always in continuous conversation. The best part about it is that when you're dealing with that you have updated combination and all that being on our code. Argus, 6.0 is what it really is.
Yeah.
So does the issuer have the ability to prove prior to issue something like this?
Yeah. Yeah. And as an issuer, how many are issuers in the crowd? So as issuers, the one thing that we would invite you to do sooner rather than later is there's a very tiny snippet of code to drop into that token, drop in that smart contract that allows the token holders that ultimately buy those tokens to access this. So and that basically is a place where we can put the address for the data series for that asset into the token to create that connectivity.
So if we're in fundraising mode and we use this, they can access what we want. Okay.
I didn't pay her anything, I promise.
I know.
I had to beg her to stay, actually.
Legal name for that check that we collect at the end of this, right?
Exactly.
Bring it back down to, meaning here's the appraised value, let's take out the debt, here's what.
So in the killer app world is multiple series, multiple waterfalls to deal with.
Priority return and then 70 back-end split with the LP. However, once we prefer return goes away, so whoever's buying do a 70-30 back-end split in order to show the existing investors.
Yeah. Yeah, and that hopefully that'll stay clean.
Stays clean going forward.
Yeah, too many times it doesn't, and there's side letters and feeder funds and all kinds of different aspects that start to make it complicated in the capital markets.
That it wasn't another issue because there were certain modifications to the token, so Rule 144 will start over again.
Right.
Got approval for that.
And our single node of truth is at that asset level too. So an asset is going to participate in multiple. It's got it. Well, so we're kind of looking across.
Investors, right? First, will LP investors.
So do you ever see this going into a more robust investor relations? You're talking about a lot of numbers, which is valuation, which is important, your quarterly valuation. But what about from a narrative standpoint? And here's the narrative that accompanies this is what happened. The way that a property manager, if you will, gives your quarterly report.
Right. We haven't. It's about bringing the data so that you can tell the story, right, and have the effective way to tell the story. Or if you're covered by an analyst at some level, at some point, then they can tell the story, and you can provide them a try. But no. We're facilitating distributed data. We really want to be operating at the wholesale level, not the retail level, and making this operable across multiple platforms. We like to be promiscuous everywhere we play. So Any other questions? It's been a good set so far. All right, well, thank you guys very much. Sam's in the back of the